Who are you?
You know who I am.
For the last time, who are you?
I am number 6. Number 6! 6!
By what evil device and for what sinister purpose is the prisoner brought face to face with himself in The Schizoid Man?
I have a very strong sense of identity.
Sorry, I was forgetting you're supposed to be me.
That's right, except there's no supposed about it. Why don't we settle this like gentlemen?
Who are you?
He's the one. He's number 6.
He's cracking number 12.
I'm ashamed of what I did to number 6 yesterday.
It was your job.
If I had a second chance, I want you to know that I wouldn't do it again.
A beautiful girl relents, but is it too late to save the prisoner from himself in The Schizoid Man? The next dramatic episode of The Prisoner on this channel.
Where am I? In the village. What do you want? Information. Whose side are you on? That would be telling. We want information. 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 What do you want? Information. What do you want? What do you want? Information. What do you want? Whose side are you on? What do you want? Information. What do you want? Information.
Hi, I'm Scott Appel, your guide to the weird and wonderful world of The Prisoner here on Channel 54. In tonight's episode, The Schizoid Man, the prisoner's very sense of identity is threatened when he is confronted with himself. The idea of an identical duplicate claiming to be oneself is a clever gimmick to be sure, but it's one best suited perhaps to B movies or paperback spy thrillers. We've come to expect more from this series, and we get it. The clever manner in which identities are shuffled gives this old idea a new and brilliant twist. Schizoid Man, which was directed by McGoohan, is full of quotable lines and includes many interesting tidbits about the prisoner's past. Pay particular attention to the manner in which McGoohan expresses emotions through his hand gestures, probably a remnant of his days on the stage. I'll be back after tonight's episode to share some ideas about why this is so important an episode, and I'll have a surprise guest here to talk with us as well, so be sure to stay tuned. But now, let's all double our pleasure and double our fun by seeing 2 prisoners instead of just one in The Schizoid Man.
Welcome back, my friends, to an all-new episode of Once Upon a Village, a Prisoner podcast. It's your number 2 here, John S. Drew speaking, and I am joined in our little village here by our number 6 himself, Mr. Jim Beard. Hey, Jim.
Or am I number 12?
Yes, that is true. You could be number 12. Well, first and foremost, do you have a mustache?
That would be telling.
It's uncanny how he looks like you.
Yeah. So let's see if by the end of this episode, our faithful listeners, all 2 of you, maybe 3, can tell if I am the real number 6 or if I'm number 12.
Well, we definitely have more than 2 or 3 listeners because the download numbers are pretty good. The problem is, as we have been asking here, in order for this conversation to continue, unless it's just Jim and I going back and forth, we'd really love to hear your thoughts, and that's not happening. I've nothing to report this week in terms of commentary, other than I'll post the episode and someone will go, "Good episode, my favorite," and and that's great. I thank you for that. That you're chiming in with that, but
sure.
But I always say, even if you don't listen to the episode, say something about to our podcast. Say something about the episode beyond that. What is it? What makes it so good? You say good episode. Why?
It must be that we're saying everything that can be said, and we're doing such a fantastic job that they get to the end of it and they go, wow, I just don't know what I would be able to add to that. Those guys are just covering it.
Maybe.
But and a big thank you to everybody who is listening, even if you're not, talking back to us. But we do appreciate it, because I think I'm speaking for myself. I'm having a good time with it.
I am. I definitely am. It's funny. The first couple of episodes, and nothing with you, Jim. It's just the content itself, and trying to find my footing and where this all goes and how we go forward with it and everything was a little rough for me personally. But for some reason now, with this episode, The Schizoid Man, and knowing that we're doing The General as the next episode, everything's clicking into place, because we talked about this, I think, in the last episode of the one before it, that we were going to do a final episode where we talk about our order, and my order is starting to come into place as I start to say, oh, all right, there's a reference here, this happens here, so you know what, this needs to go here. And my viewing order is making a lot more sense to me.
I've only had some slight opinion on that so far, and I've kind of, I've been putting my frustrations across with the way they were shown as to the way they were actually filmed. I see Schizoid Man was the 7th episode filmed. And there's a definite feel in this episode, I think, that number 6 is a little more comfortable in the village. And the village officials are trying more desperate things, more way out things, to get to him. Hey, listen, John, before I forget, I want to report on something that we brought up last time about the prisoner fiction, if you remember.
Yep.
For some reason, I thought that in recent years there was an original prisoner anthology, and I was wrong with that. I actually asked my fellow members of the International Association of Media Tie-In Writers, boy, is that a mouthful, about it, and David Spencer actually came in and put me straight. Thank you, David. And what there was 2 novels in recent years, not an anthology. And they were put out by a company called, and I believe it's pronounced Powys, P-O-W-Y-S, Powys Media. And they are more known for putting out original Space 1999 fiction, official fiction. But in 2005 and in 2008, they put out 2 official prisoner original novels. The first one called The Prisoner's Dilemma by Jonathan Bloom and Rupert Booth.
Oh, okay. I know John Bloom.
Oh, well, la-di-da. I don't know him, but I hate him. Please tell him that for me. And then in 2008, Andrew Cartmel put out one called Miss Freedom, M-I-S-S, Miss Freedom.
Huh.
And interestingly enough, you can get Prisoner's Dilemma on Amazon, but it appears that you have to go to Lulu to get Miss Freedom. Now, I've only kind of glanced at the listings for them. I really honestly don't know how faithful they are or anything like that at all. But if anybody out there has read those 2 books or one of them, let us know what you thought. And also, if you think that there is a demand or room to do something like an original anthology of prisoner stories. I don't know if Powys still has the license. The last one that they put out was 2008. They claimed that they were going to have a whole series of prisoner books. And as far as I know, there hasn't been one in 12 years. Wow, 12 years. So, again, very interesting and probably something that I'll get around to reading at some point.
Powys, is that UK-based?
I dinna ken.
Okay.
I dinna ken.
The reason I ask is because you said Andrew Cartmel, who is a British writer, written quite a number of Doctor Who novels.
Okay.
And John Bloom tends to be more on the British side, although he is an American himself. He's more on the British side of writing properties and such. So, something in terms of even if Powys still has the rights,
Yeah.
You know, if there is an interested party, it may still be able to be done here on the American side.
Oh, and you know what? I just remembered this. I believe the audio fiction company, the name's flying out of my head, they did all the Dark Shadows.
Oh, Big Finish.
Big Finish. I believe they had the license to do prisoner audio fiction, and they did put out some, and I haven't heard those two. I must admit to having a little, envy or jealousy over these people who've done this stuff, because I would very much like to do that. But I think maybe in the beginning, I thought that you had to be British to write The Prisoner. But now you tell me that an American has written prisoner fiction.
No, as long as you can get yourself in there. I have 2 Doctor Who short stories I've written for Big Finish for their.
That's right. So, that is right.
And I'm not the only American. In fact, one of the anthologies Keith DeCandido edited that I was in. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
There would be something, a prisoner Doctor Who crossover. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny.
Or the X-Files.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny, actually. You're just reminding me now, and I never got around to reading through the whole thing because I thought it was awful. But there was a Bionic Woman comic book that was produced that was supposed to be the 4th season, in which Jamie Summers is sent to a prisoner-like village because he wanted out, and so they held her there. And
that's a fun idea. Wait, was that put out by Dynamite?
Yes.
Okay, because I read some of the $6 Million Man Dynamite comics, and they're kind of hit or miss.
Yes, they are.
But I did not realize that they had done a Bionic Woman Goes to the Village. Well, it's a fun idea, at least. I'm sorry to hear that it wasn't that good.
Yeah, I couldn't get past the first issue.
Yeah.
Where am I? In the village. What do you want? Information. Whose side are you on? That would be telling. We want information. 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 You won't get it. By hook or by crook, we will. Who are you? The new number 2. Who is number 1? You are number 6. I am not a number. I am a free man.
So, Schizoid Man, huh?
Schizoid Man, yeah.
Wow.
Let's talk about this. United Kingdom airing was October 29th, 1967. First U.S. airing was July 6th, 1968. Written by Terence Feely, who will also go on to write The Girl Who Was Death. He wrote a number of episodes of British TV you'd recognize, except Doctor Who. He wrote for the Avengers. He wrote for UFO. He wrote for a bunch of the what was their names? The family that did the Space. Oh, he wrote Space 1999.
Oh, that's what was going to be my question. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't think of his name now. The family that had with the marionettes and everything they did.
Oh, Anderson.
Anderson. Okay.
Yeah.
Directed again by Pat Jackson, who's directed a number of episodes of The Schizoid Man. Before we get into it, I also just really want to point out, because I was really chuffed to see this, to use a British term.
Wait, that means you were happy, right?
Yes, that is correct.
I always mix that one up. Chuffed does not mean unhappy; it means happy. Okay,
it means
good.
Happy, correct.
Chuffed.
Two new Doctor Who members here in the cast. Our supervisor this time is not our usual. It's another actor by the name of Earl Cameron, who played one of the astronauts you'll see in William Hartnell's final story before he regenerates, The 10th Planet.
Hello, Snowcap. Hello, Snowcap. We're now in Dawn over San Francisco. Can you get the subject from where you are?
Snowcap to Zeus 4, you are very faint. Put up your power output, please.
It is up.
Which I thought was cool also, that it's like, for some reason, I always thought we had the same supervisor throughout the entire run of the series. So that was kind of cool. And he also seemed to have a little bit more in the way of dialogue.
Two things. The former supervisor is the bald man you're
Correct.
referring. Right. I think sometimes he's referred to as Control. I know the room is Control, but I thought at one point he is referred to as Control, but I could be wrong.
You might be right. The thing is, and this is where it's interesting because you say, it's the 7th episode and they don't seem to have this under control yet, because here's number 2 giving orders to the supervisor who then enacts them there from the control room.
Right. Now you're referring to the black gentleman.
Correct.
I thought that was very interesting, and I was glad to see it because we haven't seen up to this point any black actors. Am I correct in that?
You are correct.
Yeah, and again, there was something about him that sparked in me, and I'd love to see him again. I don't remember if he appears again.
No.
So he was in Doctor Who. Wow. Listen, we're going a little bit off track, but this is very interesting because I am a big fan of the Star Wars bounty hunter character named Bosk. And a couple years ago, I found out that Bosk's entire outfit worn in Empire Strikes Back was borrowed from a Doctor Who episode.
Really?
Yes. Top to bottom, they just I guess it was hanging on a rack in the studio, and they said, "Hey, let's put this on this lizard guy," and he's suddenly a bounty hunter. The interesting thing is that it is a black actor in the photos that I have seen of that outfit, and I don't know. I mean, I know it was a vintage episode, not a newer one. It made me wonder if it is that guy. Huh?
No. Not in this case, because he only appeared in the one story. It was the 10th Planet. It was actually the premiere of the Cybermen, and he plays an American astronaut who is trapped in space.
Well, see, that's what. Okay, this character is an astronaut that I'm referring to. Very interesting. We'll have to look into this.
We'll have to. Okay, we'll take.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would be surprised if because. I mean,
the photo I have seen, he's sitting in a chair in what I would think is maybe a cockpit of a spaceship or some sort.
Yeah, well, that would be it because he was trapped in space as
oh my God! If this is the guy, I love him even more now. Okay, all right. We're going to have to find this out. And, of course, again, if people out there want to chime in on this, I would love to, hear. He's the alternate Bosk. Very cool.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane. The outfit, they didn't change it one single bit. It's and it's got millions of pieces all over it. And it's like the exact outfit. They literally just took it and stuck lizard feet, lizard hands, and a lizard head mask on the guy wearing it, and that's the Star Wars character.
All right, well then now we definitely have to look into this.
Okay. Could you see what that guy's number was? I wrote it down as 100 at first, and then I was trying to peer at the screen a little bit more, and I thought maybe it was 106. Did you catch that?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't.
Because if he was number 100, what a cool number to have. You know? Yeah. Okay, but anyways.
Unlike poor number 256, because at one point there, the prisoners walked through the village, and I said, wow, there's a number 200. By the time you say, hey, number 256, he's moved on.
Yeah. So, number 256, what did you have for breakfast today? Well, number, 172.
They don't get invited to many parties.
No. You have to be in the single or double digits.
The other actor, by the way, and appropriately enough, his name is David Netheim. He plays the doctor in this episode who does his little experimentation on our prisoner, making him think he's number 6. He appeared in 2 episodes of the Enemy of the World Doctor Who storyline.
Oh, that's good.
Is it? I'm very glad to hear that.
What?
I am Salamander's food taster.
Does he need one?
There have been many attempts to poison him.
Yeah, dangerous job.
That's why it's very nice to have help for a change.
You mean you haven't?
No, I didn't have time. Still taste good? Nothing bitter?
No, I don't think so.
You would know by now, I think.
Oh. Oh, you had me worried for a moment. But what on earth made you take a job as a food taster?
She was hungry.
Which is an interesting one because it is one of two stories in the entire run of Doctor Who where there is not a science fiction monster element to it. It is a straightforward story. The other one is a murder mystery. This one is a spy story.
Oh, how very interesting. He looked very familiar to me, by the way. To me, he was one of those faces that I've probably seen in things before. I know it wouldn't be Doctor Who, but he seemed very familiar to me.
Mm-hmm. And I bring up that also not only just because of the Doctor Who reference, but in the story itself, Patrick Troughton's Doctor finds out that in this time period of Earth, the ruler of the world is an exact duplicate of him.
Oh, very interesting.
Yes.
Very cool. Wow.
All right, so let's talk about this episode here. Now, this is interesting because the episode opens in a much more relaxed. It's not tense in any way, like all the other episodes we've seen so far. Our prisoner in his home, he's working with number 26 on her mind-reading act here, a month ahead of a festival that's being held.
Yeah.
You know, it's a weird dynamic here because at one moment he seems like he's being pleasant to her, and then the next moment he seems and comes across as a hard taskmaster.
Here's my thoughts on this scene. And number one, and I wanted to say this right at the beginning. We've been very lucky. All the episodes we've watched and talked about have been good. We have not had any clunkers at all. Number two, if you'll pardon the pun, I think McGoohan's. This is maybe more or less a tour de force for him. This episode. I think he is so good in this one. And I already knew he's a good actor, a great actor, whatever. I think he really, really kicked it in this episode. He's so good as we get farther into the episode. But I really like this scene because I do my normal questioning, like, is the girl a plant? She has to be. All the other women in the show have been, a setup, a plant. But it seems so sincere as this scene is going on. And it gets to the point where you would almost think that he is flirting with her or they're flirting with each other. But we know number 6 sort of better than that. And we think, no, it can't be. And if what you see as him kind of pulling back might be interpreted as he sees what he's doing and steps back from it, and sends her on her way. But you almost want it to be all exactly what we're seeing, either a friendship or maybe very slightly romantic. And then what they're doing also is very fascinating. We haven't really had any paranormal, things like that. And this is what was really funny to me is I got the Ghostbusters flashback. I'm a big Ghostbusters person, as you may know, and yes. If there's anybody out there who is aware of my Ghostbusters comic book work, but how can you watch this scene and know Ghostbusters and not sit there and start the guy that's being tested by Peter Venkman, he says, there's a couple of wavy lines, and she says, it's 3 wavy lines. I'm so, the next thing you know, you expect number 6 to be giving her little shocks. But here's the one thing that I got to know. Why do the British call an X a cross?
Why do they call French fries chips?
Why do they call potato chips crisps?
Exactly.
Why do they call cookies biscuits? I know. But wait, this one really doesn't make sense. A cross is a cross is a cross, right?
Right.
And an X is an X is an X. So why is she calling an X a cross? And then when they do hold up a cross, I hate to say this, I was so fixated on her calling an X a cross that I didn't remember what she called the cross. Did you? Did she call it an X? I'm trying. It's like I was so fixated on that. Like that's so weird. Like, you know, in Christian religions in the UK, what do they say Jesus hung on? You know,
hung on an X.
That's not an X. You know, yeah. I just thought that was very funny. And then of course the big thing of this whole scene and furthermore is this character. It has a name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Allison. Yep.
That is that kind of speaks volumes to me.
She has a name. She has a name that not only he uses, but number 2 will use.
Yeah. Putting aside number 2 for the moment, 6 calling her that again to me speaks of some intimacy, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like she's said her name to him. The funny thing is that did he do his typical thing when, you know, in a scene we didn't see somewhat previous to this, when she introduces herself, does he say, no names, you know, did he just make her call him number 6, or God forbid, did he tell her what his real first name is?
I don't believe it's the latter.
No, I don't either. But how did she take that? She's, you know, but she may have been something of a sort of an innocent, you know, naive or whatever, and just automatically said her name. She might be newer to the village than he is. And then, and then you add into the thing that number 2 said that. I just read something somewhere that pointed out that women throughout this show are given names. We had Nadia in Chimes of Big Ben, and I think there's some other ones. And it's wherever I was reading, it said that they thought maybe that was more or less the period nod to females, meaning it's more polite than just calling them by a number. That they're, you know, a warmer creature and should have a name. You know, I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear if there was anything purposeful in that, in the among the script writers, or if it was just a thing of the day. You know, you know, that you just call a woman by her name. That you know, it seems so cold to call them by a number. It's not very consistent in this show.
No.
But it is interesting.
But see, the thing is, okay, because you bring up the idea, possibly is there flirting? Is there? I kind of picked up the whole relationship. There's that hope with her that there could be something more, or you know, whether it's an act or what, you know, like with Nadia, or whether it's for real. He will flirt a little bit, but like you say, he pulls back. There's a line there because there's this whole thing going on, you know, with the mind reading. And then also she's a bit of a photographer. She wants to enter that in part of the festival and everything. And she's also a bit of a klutz because she manages to like smash a bottle or something on the prisoner's thumb, causing this bruise.
Yeah, she knocks over that bottle, right?
Right. But see, here's the thing. Once, you know, that awkwardness is over, she's taken a picture of him and everything. She says, I want to try again. I want to do, you know, the mind reading thing. And he goes, it's getting late. I don't want to ruin your average and have you get discouraged. And I couldn't get the closed captioning to it didn't seem to work for me. I don't know what was going on. Maybe it's my DVD player. I don't know what. I could have sworn she said, you care? Like she was hopeful.
I don't know if that is what is said at that point, but even without that, I would go along with what you're saying here. She is a plant and she is not a plant. Mm-hmm. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, especially when you consider, without getting into it, I know you like to, but later on in the episode.
Yeah. So yeah, we can talk more about that. The other thing is about the photography is, and that's to me another sign of number 6 opening up more to Allison than anybody else we have seen so far, because if he was a spy, that could mean his death, to have his photograph taken.
Yeah.
By anybody that's not, people in his office, or his boss or whatever. So he's not now he knows he's being watched all the time, but you would think an old habit would be hard to, this whole thing is about habits being hard to break, right?
Right.
Or easy, as it were. Wow, maybe there's more to this than I'm even thinking of. There's different levels. But anyways, I love that, because the whole thing with the photography, it's playful. That's the word I'm going to use about most of this scene.
Right.
Is how playful it is, that he is bothering to give this girl the time of day, especially with something that we would call paranormal, ESP. Why a man like him would bother with such a thing and then actually give it credence, give her credit that it seems to be working, and that they even have some sort of, connection. He says simpatico.
Yes.
Real interesting character of Allison.
Yes. Played by Jane Merrow, who appeared in any number of television shows. I know her from $6 Million Man, where she did 2 appearances. In fact, I was fortunate enough to interview her.
You're kidding me.
Yeah,
Wow.
I got to interview her for my OSI Files podcast. I'm going to go scrub through it and see if because it's been so long since I did it, and see if she did make any commentary on The Prisoner, and I'll put it in at the end of the episode if that's the case. I did reach out to her prior to us getting together and said, did you want that I could throw out there, but she never got back to me. So.
Oh boy, if she had, it would have been so nice if we could have had her to, and talk to her together.
Right.
I would love to hear her talk about acting with McGoohan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what he was like. Wow. And I don't know if there are any outside scenes with her. I think everything of hers is on sets and backlots. I don't think that she's actually in any Port Miron scenes.
Oh, at the very end.
Is that right?
That's where I was saying that's where we get to see that whole was she a plant? She was, she wasn't. It's the very end. She meets him at the helicopter.
You're right. Wow. Okay, that would be another. Well, you know what? I'll cross my fingers, and if she comes through, we can do a whole episode with her. I'd love it.
And like I said, in the meantime, I'll also check and see if if she said I literally did that interview like 6 years ago, so it's yeah.
Okay, but now it's time for me to get my hair dyed and my mustache dyed.
Well, see, now here's the interesting thing, okay? Because first and foremost, now we see number 2 for the first time, and I think this is the youngest one we've seen yet. First and foremost,
I think so too. Yeah, or at least he looks it. Yeah.
He orders the pulsator, he calls, being used on our prisoner as he sleeps. Now, here's the thing. This is why I will say to you this much. This episode should come before the general in A, B, and C, because in A, B, and C, we will see that pulsator used again, and we will see no explanation of it. It's just suddenly used as some weird. Here it's given a name. It's given credence. It's really like, this isn't just a plot device. It's a device we use on our prisoners here. It's called the pulsator. And then, and this is the other thing too, because you caught on this when we were doing A, B, and C, how the show opens automatically with our prisoner being brought into the lab. Well, guess what? Here, we see how they managed to do that. The pulsator sort of lulls him and makes him a little more sleepier, and then our technicians come in and drug him and then carry him out. We don't need to go through all that again with A, B, and C, because we've now been introduced to it here, which is why I'm like, this should go before the general in A, B, and C.
And it was made before the general, which was number 10, and A, B, and C, which was number 11.
Right.
But it's the order is weird. Hey, listen, if 6 has not figured out that the light over his bed is now this weird device, and ripped it right out of the ceiling then I have no sympathy for him. They've used the damn thing on him twice so far that we've seen, and so like just go home and just give it one good tug and rip it right out. You do not need that light over your bed.
Yeah. Now, this was interesting though. So he's brought in, and rather than now, it's going to happen later. We only get a quick moment of him being conditioned where we've got our technician sort of with the electric prod trying to get him to use his left hand. But it's so fast. Later, we're going to get this whole thing as suddenly the flashbacks hit him, and it suddenly occurs to him what the hell happened to him. And it's going to be this long, drawn-out thing. We don't get it here. It's like, no, left hand, and then next thing he wakes up, he's in a different bed. He's got the mustache, the different hair color, the different hairstyle. He's a different man.
I like the way it's done, that we don't get the full details. In fact, I'm almost surprised that they gave us that hint at all, that they didn't go right to him waking up with the black hair and the mustache. I mean, the audience would have just been gobsmacked by that and just sat there and said, "What the hell?" Other than maybe it's in a way it was to handle the audience with kid gloves a little bit, like maybe that is too harsh to just show him suddenly change. We'll give them a little hint and make them wonder more about what happened. But when he wakes up and he runs his hands up to his head and he finds the mustache. This is the beginning for me of when McGoohan's acting really kicks in. And I think he handles everything from this point on so well. And it's very different from what we've seen so far. He's really knocked back. It takes him a while to get on a solid ground again.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this thing's really working on him now. I mean, he tries to be brave in the face of it and bluster a little bit, but it's put down. I mean, they really set him reeling quickly and then keep it up. And, we see a side of number 6 that we haven't seen before. And McGoohan just does a wonderful job at it. And if you watch him from this point on, and not just his face, but everything, especially his hands and the things that he's doing to show that number 6 is reeling are just really, really good. It's just it's exactly what actors should do, is these little ticks and everything else to throw in there to show the mental instability of what's happening to the character.
Now, let me ask you this, though.
Yeah.
Was part of that portrayal him straight out wondering if he really was number 12, or just a fear of what is going on here because everything I know about me isn't clicking?
I don't know. I can't say if there's ever a moment where he's absolutely questioning if he's not number 6 or if he's number 12. And I do want to call this out. This episode is a standout because all along it's been him saying that he is not number 6. He's a free man. He's not a number. He's, an individual. Mm-hmm. And then in this episode, he is completely defending the point that he is number 6.
Exactly. Which I love.
That right, and it's stunning, Suddenly, it's not I am not a number. It's clinging to this idea that he is number 6. That is his identity, or at least what he has at the moment. And now they're taking that away from him. You gave me a number, and I'm settling in maybe or whatever, and then suddenly I'm not that number that you gave me. Just really, really cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, one last thing, too, with the whole conditioning, the really quick conditioning scene, my takeaway from it actually was I was paying more attention to, because they had the medical chart there on his bed, And when he was taken away, it was the 10th. Now it says the 11th as the training begins. And God only knows how long that training went on. They had to let the beard grow. So at least,
Yeah, I was going to say,
2 weeks.
Yeah, and we'll get into that or whatever. It's also the progression of the bruise under his fingernail.
Yes.
That doesn't move overnight like that, or even after a day or two. That takes a while for a bruise to advance. I once smashed my finger in a mailbox. I don't know if any of our listeners know what a mailbox is anymore. An official government mailbox. I had one close on the lid thing close on my finger and smash it so bad that I eventually lost the nail. But there was a bruise, and it took a while for that bruise, to progress. So, and you can see, when spoiler alert, he starts to figure things out. That has, so I don't know, a week at least.
At least,
right? Yeah, and to set everything all the way back is another huge gambit. And did they go throughout the entire village and reset the date? How did they know he wouldn't go into a shop or ask somebody else somewhere what the date was?
They did enough that I would imagine that they told everybody in the village it's still the 10th, because sure enough, even as he wakes up and he starts walking around, people are walking up to him and referring to him as number 12.
Yeah. Doesn't this fit right in with this whole thing that we were saying last time and the time before, is that there's a switch that they turn on and off, and it controls the entire village and everybody in it.
Yep.
And all for one man.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not frightening, I don't know what is. Hey, one more thing. You talked about people calling him, why are you calling me number 12? This is funny. We've seen the first black person in the village, and our hero passes a Sikh.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's fascinating too, because it's these little nods to the village being more global in scope. But I thought that was interesting. It's like in Star Trek when you see whatever episode it is where there's an Indian female on the bridge with the dot on her forehead, and you want to just stop everything and go, who is this character? What are they all about?
Yep.
Why are they?
What is her
this
story?
guy, this guy, you get 2 seconds of him and he's gone. I wish they did more things like that. But anyways.
But who what did he do, or is he just working with, what is the deal? Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
He worked for the Indian Secret Service, probably.
But it is really cool. And number 2, makes his way, or the prisoner makes his way to number 2's place.
Ah, my dear chap. Delighted to see you. You're looking fine, you really are. I don't mind telling you we had to pull every string we could in order to get you seconded back to us. Now, breakfast. A la carte, table d'hôte. Oh? Yes, they screamed as if I were taking their pensions away.
And we even get, and again, this is why I say it's early on, because we're continuing that theme of breakfast. We're having
I love that.
I got your breakfast laid out here, and he immediately goes for the flapjacks.
Do you think I'd forgotten we used to call you Flapjack Charlie? Even in those days, it was obvious you were going to make a top field man. Here am I, stuck in admin.
I want to call a halt here for a moment.
Okay.
I didn't realize that the British used the term flapjack.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I thought that was purely American. So I guess it's just my xenophobia or whatever, my Americentric, persona or whatever, that I just thought that was interesting that they called them flapjacks. But if you notice that number 2 tests him, because the closest thing to him is a whole bunch of other breakfast items that he quickly clanks his way through. Mm-hmm. And refuses them until he gets to the flapjacks.
The flapjacks, by the way, the British actually, because they even have a whole day, I don't know what the significance of it, they call it Pancake Day. And
okay, but they call it Pancake Day.
Sure.
I thought flapjacks was an American term, but I guess I'm obviously wrong because they called them that in this. And that's not what he had there was not what I would call pancakes or flapjacks. Those look more like crepes.
Yes.
Or blintzes, or even I'm drawing a blank here. But anyways, that's it's just another one of those differences of what we call one thing and the British call something else.
Well, according to, because I did a quick thing, it says the word origin goes all the way back to the early 17th century.
No?
Yeah.
Oh, well, but in America or in England?
Well, that's the thing. It's still saying here North American.
Wow, weird.
Yeah.
Why in the world does it? Okay, all right, British listeners, tell us about this the flap over flapjacks.
The flap over flapjacks.
I want to know. I need to get to the bottom of this flapjack thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go on.
You always did enjoy your food, even before a job from the Black File.
Sorry I didn't shave. Couldn't find a razor.
Oh, my dear chap, I'm so sorry.
Must have been mislaid. Strange apartment.
And after all that flying,
yes,
you must feel a bit disorientated.
What's it all about?
Our prize prisoner, the one we call number 6. Toughest case I've ever handled. I could crack him, of course, but I can't use the normal techniques. It's too valuable. Mustn't damage him permanently, say our masters. That's why I need you.
Why do you need me?
You bring 2 great gifts to bear. Firstly, your ability as an agent.
Oh, yes. Secondly?
You have a unique physical advantage.
Physical advantage of growing a moustache overnight?
No, not quite. You took longer that time in Bucharest.
Bucharest?
You remember how Susan hated you without it? She told me she wouldn't kiss you until you grew it again.
That's good for Susan.
You know, you really do bear a remarkable resemblance. Remarkable. Your job, number 12, will be to impersonate him. Take his sense of reality away. Once he begins to doubt his own identity, he'll crack. What do you think of the idea?
I think it has fascinating possibilities, but you'll have an awful job convincing me that I am not your number 6.
Ah, excellent, number 12, of course. Always the professional. Started living the part already, eh? Oh, that reminds me. Allow me. You're now officially number 6.
I shan't need this to remind me that I am your number 6.
You'll find all his background details in here. Study them. You want to watch that number 12? Number 6 is right-handed. Yes, we'll just have to make a very few changes. Oh, don't worry. I'll get a couple of my girls to work you over a little. But they're very pretty.
So, okay, so they're having their breakfast and all that. And this is also now, again, second time because we've already done A, B, and C. But again, it kind of starts making more sense for A, B, and C if this comes before it. We hear number 2 telling our 12 now that number 6 cannot be damaged.
Yeah, but they didn't use the word tissue.
No, they didn't use the word tissue, yes.
I was a little upset because I thought, oh, good, I love to hear the British say tissue, and they didn't. So they suck.
And of course, our prisoner right off the bat is, and this is where it starts. You can't convince me I'm not your number 6. Now it starts with your number 6.
Yeah. Yep. Your number 6. Yeah.
All right, but that's a start. It's a start. At least acknowledging that someone refers to him as number 6.
You know, number 2 in his head, he's got to keep up, the whole thing. And you know what? Obviously, he is number 2. He's the number 2 for this gambit because he's a good actor. Mm-hmm. Like the number 2s usually have to be good actors, within the fiction of the show to put things across. But this guy is really good. Like number 1 put him in place because he's a good actor. In his head, he's probably going, "Oh, now you want to be number 6." Yeah.
And of course we see, the whole thing with the left hand as he tosses our prisoner number 6's dossier and he catches it with the left hand. He goes, you got to be careful. He uses the right hand.
Right.
We get this whole thing where then he's made up to look like himself.
Now we, the audience, are starting to get on topsy-turvy ground because it's number 6 being made to look like number 12 and then made to look like number 6, but he's told he's number 12.
Right.
And when he's made up to look like number 6, he's told that that's not him. So, wow, that gets really topsy-turvy.
And then he's brought to his home, and he notes that things are out of place or things aren't necessarily the way they should appear in terms of, he mentioned something about the way a certain piece of art is not the right tone or something, I think, if I remember correctly. So that's bothering him. But number 2...
Oh, it was a statue, and he said it should be gilded, not silver.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, how weird, like, that they, the village people went through, went through and, like, said, okay, what will we change? Couple little things here, couple little things there.
Right, exactly. Just enough to upset him in one way and in another way to start questioning, in their hopes, questioning his reality, because it's like, well, no, this isn't number 6 because you're not number 6.
Right. Right. And because number 6 wears a white jacket.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. 2 leaves him saying number 6 will be along shortly here. They set up a password so this way he'll know which one he's talking to at first I thought it was just straightforward, and I love how that plays out later. And their password is Gemini. So,
or if you're Patrick McGoohan, it's Gemini.
Gemini, yes.
Yeah. yeah, he can't even get that right.
So our number 6 arrives, and as you say, he's wearing a white coat with the black trim around, as opposed to the black coat with the white trim around.
Yeah. Well, you finally got another person to wear that style of jacket, John.
Did you note in the closet there was a beige one with black trim?
Yes, yeah. Right.
Same cool. Style, just different colors, that's all.
Yeah, that would be the spring version
right.
of jacket, yeah. And he's usually wearing the winter version of it.
They begin bantering back and forth. And I got to say, because I always look for this now, ever since people pointed it out to me, I look to see their like how the split screen works in each situation. And I got to admit, for the few times they're on split screen, they're really good about actually not looking each other in the eye. So you can't really tell, because that's like the thing. Whenever you see them like in split screens looking each other in the eye level never seems to match just right. They make a point not to even bother with that because both are so disgusted with the other, they can't look each other in the eye.
It's really good in this episode, and you and I grew up with watching billions of episodes of TV shows with split screen. And even as a kid, you learn to look for what, the line. Where's the line? What did they use on the set to have the bumping up of the two pieces of film or whatever, I'm thinking of Brady Bunch episodes, and you go, oh, well, there's the line right there. But it's really well done in this, and the use of a double to be when they're together, or literally together in a scene, that they got somebody. And I was reading up about it. It's a guy who was normally the stunt double, but he did have a good resemblance to McGoohan. So in those shots where it is him and it's not a split screen shot, you believe it. It's not, God forbid, and God love them, it's not like Star Trek where sometimes they had the worst doubles ever. I'm thinking, I'm looking at you, Khan, Kirk fight.
Yes.
in Space Seed, where it's painfully obvious that it's not, even in our beloved Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is actually really done well when they have to be in the same scene together. They're moving around, and it's good, but at least they have like the hair, the back of his head and everything is good. One thing I wasn't clear on is number 12. Are we to assume that he was given plastic surgery to look like 6, or is it that he's somehow literally the double of number 6? It has to be that he was given plastic surgery.
See, if he was given plastic surgery, then why did they bother, or was that something they just added on? That whole thing with the mole in the left hand that the prisoner was able to remove from him and put on his own arm.
Yeah.
That's why I wonder, was it really plastic surgery, or was it just he was close enough and then a little, work here and there? Because and as we'll find out, it's like, how did you miss the mole?
Yeah. There's a line, number 2, when they're first talking, he and number 6 are talking, and he's acting like 6 is 12. He says something like, "You really do look like him," or "You really are a good, duplicate of him," or whatever. But of course he's talking to 6,
right?
But as if he's 12. But it made me wonder again, did they just happen to find a guy who looked a lot like number 6, or did they do stuff to make him, look like number 6? Inquiring minds want to know.
I really just am on the side that I think it's just he's close enough, and maybe they did a little here and there, but not like full out.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting, because he, to a certain extent, he is a really good number 6, as we'll see. I mean, they go off. They go to this recreation hall, where there's a target practice thing set up there, like a video game. It's like these silhouettes that you can shoot at.
Yeah.
And again, that reminder, use your right hand. I'm right-handed, by the way, he says to the prisoner. So, and our prisoner is not very good, which shakes his confidence there. Then they have a fencing match, and you can see the fear on his face, the prisoner, when number 6 bests him.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to, point out how good McGoohan is in these scenes. That it's not a ruse that he's doing, a la, ABC or one of the other ones. He's really been knocked for a loop again, by this whole thing. And number 12 as 6 is really pushing the whole thing through.
Right. Yep. And there's an interesting bit there, because number 2 is watching from the control room with the supervisor. And this goes back to something you were talking about a while ago with Chimes of Big Ben with Nadia. Why, if Nadia is a plant, is number 2 referring to, like, and looking and going, oh, she's a swimmer. Now here he is with the supervisor and saying, oh, number 12. And he's obviously referring to the prisoner at this point.
Right.
Why is he keeping up the charade with the supervisor there? And again, I say it's for the audience. It's more for us. We're just as much of a prisoner watching the show.
Yeah, I guess I could justify it and say the fewer people that know what the scheme is, the better.
Right.
Although one might assume that the people in the control room probably don't get out into the village much, so that they wouldn't necessarily stumble across number 6 and call him number 6. But you're right. It's it's for our benefit, right?
Right. Yeah. They step outside the recreation hall. They briefly box. Again, because he's desperate at this point now. The prisoner to try and prove, and again, quickly bested.
It's a good scene, and it's kind of brutal.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that it's outdoors and there are other villagers walking around. And what must they think? That, they're seeing 2 guys that look exactly alike, and then they suddenly start having this brawl, right there, and the one kicks the other one's ass.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I like this scene a lot too. It's very brutal. The way number 12 as 6 is throwing those punches and just never lets up. Does not give 6 any chance at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. And with that fight, Rover comes along, and
yeah,
without a word, there's the growling.
Oh dear. Looks as though we're in trouble with the headmaster. Must be confusing for it, not knowing which one of us to bite. This way.
Number 6. Come along in. Heard you were having a spot of bother.
Historical moment. It is Rover. It is actually said as Rover on screen. From what I understand, this is the only episode that it's actually called Rover.
Called Rover several times, actually, throughout the episode.
And that fascinating line about I think what did he say? Make the headmaster mad, or we've upset the headmaster, or whatever. Now, I know he's referring to number 2, but for a moment there, it fell neatly into my my theory about how the Rovers are the ones that are actually in charge. but later on, that theory is smashed to pieces.
True. That is true. And what's interesting enough is that when they get to number 2s, our fake 6 is grabbed by, the 2 of them or grabbed by like some guards and stuff and taken inside. Whereas number 2 starts just talking to the prisoner, and even at one point slips and says, and refers to him as number 6. And the prisoner's like, number 12.
Yeah.
I love that bit.
Yeah. Good stuff.
It is. It is. Then we get now, and this is interesting because, we're told you can't damage number 6, but the prisoner doesn't know that yet. He doesn't know any of this. So we get a good old-fashioned interrogation of our foe number 6 being asked, how did you, and it's not a matter of why did you resign or how did you get here? What are you doing here? What do you want? And of course he can't answer any of the questions. He's, I was here, I'm number 6 and all this, and he passes out from the interrogation.
Yeah. Yeah. Very intensive, but again, one big sham for number 6's quote unquote benefit.
Right. They have to, then go through this whole process of proving who the real number 6 is, because, there's our foe 1 saying he's number 6, and then our own prisoner starting to say he's number 6. This is the part where he's like, I am number 6, so we'll just use the old fingerprints thing. But, both of them kind of agree it's better to have the more human touch because fingerprints can be faked. And as we see, the fake number 6 puts his fingerprint down and it's a match. Our own prisoner doesn't, though. I thought that was interesting.
Yes, I agree too.
I wonder if he did that thinking that if I put my finger down there, it may not be real.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, right.
So he goes and instead calls number 24. Allison asks her to come to number 2's house with the cards. And
is it 26 or 24?
Did I say 26? I meant 24.
Okay, earlier you said 26.
Did I? Okay, I got to...
Yeah, it's 24.
It is 24, yes.
24, right.
It is 24. I'm sorry.
Okay, here's the point where I'm totally confused, and I think the show wanted me to be. Is this where 24 is in on it?
Yes, I would say yes. Based on what we'll see later, I will say this is the point where she's either has been brought in on it or was in on it all along.
Okay. My feeling is that previously she was not in on it.
Okay.
And then she, by this point, is brought in on it. And it's harsh. And we find out later how it affects her. When it begins and they get the first card right, and, you know, you sort of cheer, yay, okay, you know, and then it starts to go horribly wrong. And the look on McGoohan's face, when he keeps looking back at number 2, you know, and it's just not going well at all. It's very sad. It's hard to watch, actually.
Well, see, that also then brings up a very sad thing about the village there, because you could develop friendships with people you think you know. They could be going along well for days, weeks, months, even years. And then suddenly, because the village wants something out of you as one of the prisoners, your friend could turn on you for whatever reason just because the village orders it.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Number 6, again, after this episode, if he doesn't change a whole bunch of things, I have no sympathy for him. You know, rip the damn pulsator thing out of your ceiling over your bed. Never, ever, ever begin to form anything resembling a friendship with anybody at the village, because you can't trust them.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Now, as you say, you know, she's not in sync with our prisoner. She only gets the first one right, and then after that, she gets everyone wrong. The fake number 6, the faux one, comes up, and she does it perfectly with him.
Yeah.
She also points out, and this is where I was saying before about the mole on the arm. She says, I know he's got a mole. Now, again, that suggests a level of intimacy to know that much about a person.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are ways we generally don't see number 6 in anything but his jacket and his pajamas. Really, that's about how we have seen him, you know, other than the tuxedo in the alternate reality of A, B, and C. But yeah, you know, it's like, I don't know, well, maybe they went swimming one day or something, you know, like that. But yeah, again, that you're right. I would also label it as that.
And she also produces the picture she took. Now, at that point, this was weird because she says, and this is what makes me wonder. She says, I also took this picture. Was that her way? Because what does the picture prove? It's just a picture of him.
Yeah.
Was that her way of sort of like saying, look at, like, because he takes the picture of the prisoner. He's got it, which we'll see shortly. He pulls it out and everything. Was that her way of saying, you know, look at the picture?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to go back to saying this is where my confusion comes in. You're right. If you're saying that this is her, you know, her trying to send a signal to number 6 without number 2 and number 12 knowing what's going on, because it's the pivot point here is the photo.
Right.
The number 2 either didn't know about it or didn't care about it, didn't think anything at all about it, but it's got the clues in it that we'll see are instrumental in breaking this whole thing down.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting though is that with that done, there you would think, okay, this is broke. Because like then number 6 walks off, the fake one walks off with Allison, number 24, and you know it's like, oh, heads are gonna roll and everything is bad. But then we cut to it's nighttime, and the prisoner is in bed sleeping. And he's in this bad dream state. He's, you know, restless in bed and stuff. As 2 and the fake 6, who we now know, we're told here, is actually 12, are looking on.
Right.
You know, it's the only little part of this whole thing that bothered me, because I'm like, there was no repercussion or follow-up for this whole screw-up here. It was kind of like, whoops. And we're just going to continue on with the... Once again, it's like... A, B, and C, where it was like, we let number 6 go back to his house. Why did you do that? Why didn't you keep him? Now, why wasn't there some, you know, either the jig is up or what's the next phase? Instead, we leave it to him waking up just before dawn and he's looking at the picture. He's seeing his bruised finger. He looks at his bruised finger. He
Yeah.
sees the date on the picture being the 10th. How can it be the 10th if that picture was taken, previously, if we already had the 10th? And at this point here in the story, this is actually the 12th.
Right.
At least, right?
Right. Real quick to comment about what you're saying is that they must have felt enough confidence at this point that everything was still going the way they wanted it to go.
Right.
And maybe at this point they figured they would let, nature or quasi-nature take its course. We got to go a little bit further before I have another comment that kind of relates to that, but keep going.
All right. So, with that in mind, with the memory of that, that's when he stares at himself in the mirror. He sees a reflection of himself as number 12 with the mustache and the dark hair. And then he recalls the training. And now we get into this, eating the right foods, the left hand, him being worked on in terms of growing the beard and then trimming it and shaving it and getting the mustache and the hair and the look, the whole thing. And it's lengthy. It's like, if you didn't figure it out before, gang, we conditioned it. It
does kind of hammer the point.
Yes.
Not only hammer it in, but kind of into the ground.
Yeah.
Here's another part, and I could just be being dense, and I don't get it. I'm not sure what the wire in the cigarette meant.
I didn't get that either. I got the cigarette itself because he pulls out the white cigarette and crushes it because he doesn't smoke those, and then he pulls out the cigar.
Right. Or it's the black, or it's either that or it's the black cigarettes. I'm not sure what. Okay, it's the cigars.
It's the cigar because then he pulls out the black cigarette, and because that box has the black cigarette by the lamp, and the lamp starts flashing. It's malfunctioning. Whatever's going on there, because I don't think that's part of the conditioning. It just starts blinking, and the blinking then reminds him, use the left hand. Suddenly it's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. Again, what did the wire mean? I
don't know.
Okay, listeners, if you can tell us about the wire, please do. And if I'm being dense, then I'm being dense. And maybe I need to go and read one of the books that I have and see if they explain it better than that.
What did the wire mean? What did taking a faulty lamp? Okay, I'm assuming that's what its condition was. It was a faulty lamp. What did that suddenly do? Taking that and grabbing onto the metal piping on the wall, creating the electrical current.
But that's very important.
It's very important. But what made him think all that?
Well, maybe it's got something to do with the lamp being faulty, that he knew that he could administer a shock to himself. Then.
Right.
I need to stop right there at this moment. This is a heady moment here. Our guy administered shock therapy to himself. I mean, that's balls, right?
Yes.
That's really something. And they're obviously not watching him, because if that doesn't damage the tissues, then I don't know. Yeah, that's amazing. And obviously it's TV. I think he might need a little bit more than just the one blast of it, but that clears everything up right there. Mm-hmm. But it needs to be shorthanded because we need to get on with things. But wow, it's still a wow moment, because I tell you something, if I was in that guy's place, I couldn't give myself a shock like that. Because how did he know it wouldn't kill him? You know?
That's what I'm saying. How did he know it wouldn't kill him? How did he know how much electricity? How did he know that this was even going to work at all the way he set himself up there as a conduit between the two, surfaces and stuff like that? And then, and you say shorthand, okay, we could have gotten a little bit. We could have gotten a line or two, a memory, something, anything. Instead, once he's conditioned or reconditioned or deconditioned, however you want to put it, then he sits there with that box, and we get, and it's a good minute or so as he's just tossing it with his right hand. I'm back. Yeah. I'm back. And it's like that, we could have cut that short.
Well, I would say that by this point, the audience deserves that moment, because in my opinion, I savored it. It's like a big relief valve that we've been holding our breath all this time. And I didn't think it was too overly long. Okay, I looked something up here. I have that book I told you about. It's a British book, The Prisoner, by Dave Rogers. I'm Not a Number, I'm a Free Man. The authorized history of the adventures of Number 6. They have very lengthy plot details for each episode. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, the cigar box comes next. Breaking open a panatella, he discovers the plastic filament which made the cigars unpalatable to the smoker. So that was lost on me. I guess I would never even thought of that. Like, it looked more like a wire, to me.
Right.
And then it says that he peers beneath the table lamp inspecting it for hidden microphones but finds nothing, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but anyway, I had to. That was driving me crazy about that thing in the cigar. So, okay, go on. Sorry.
Well, now that he's broken the conditioning, he leaves the house, and I thought this is interesting because it's one of the few times we really see this. It's the village at night. It's still pre-dawn.
Right.
It's not. We haven't gotten to that point yet. And what's interesting is he steps out of the house because we've already had this established that music, lights, everything goes out at 10 at night, but somehow or another he's able to have the lights on in his home there. He's able to step outside. He's not bothered at all by a Rover that just walks by or floats by, which I thought was interesting.
Right. And it could be that Rover was told to leave him alone.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. Because as we'll see, he's going to act like he is playing right into their hands anyway.
Right, exactly, yeah. He then, walks about. He meets up with two men, just random, because, again, we've got to have a fight. So a brief fight with the two of them, which he takes them out. He jumps into a nearby taxi because he sees a Rover nearby, drives off. The Rover follows.
The fight shows that he is capable of fighting again. He got his ass whooped in the boxing scene.
That's true.
I get it, but a little action, but the fight also shows he can handle himself again, not against just one guy, but two.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah. And he does really clean mop up the floor with those two.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Knocks one guy clear across the courtyard there.
Those two very obviously stunt person stunt will work for the show. Anyway,
he then, like I said, he jumps in the taxi, drives off with the Rover following him. But he jumps out of the taxi, letting it continue on its way as the Rover continues on.
Yeah, Rover then suddenly becomes kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Just follows the vehicle.
Well, Rover just isn't very smart in this episode, in general.
Right. Yes. I mean, again, my whole theory gets shattered to pieces.
Right. He then makes his way to his own home, manages to wake up number 12, who is a light sleeper and has a nerve gas gun.
A nerve gas gun. Love it. I sleep with one of those. I don't know about anybody else, right?
It looked more like an Alvino ray gun, though, from Batman.
Right. Could be made by the same people. Who knows?
Right. There's this brief, because, again, we're back to the coda of the show. Why did you resign if you're number 6?
Number 6 is playing along with it now. He's fixed himself, but he's playing along with it, and he starts doing the whole thing, the whole weepy bit about the dream and who am I and blah, blah, blah. And then he says the thing about, I even dreamed that I resigned.
Yes.
And number 12 jumps on that, right?
Right.
Okay. We've said this before. What was the plan all along? What was the plan to get that information? Was it this? Was it that? How would they have known that he might have a dream? And then, you know what I mean? To me, it's very happenstance.
Yeah.
12 thinks they're going to get what they need to get, but again, is that what they thought? Like, again, how do you get to the breakdown that you're trying to give the guy, and then get this very particular bit of information out of him? I like the moment, but if you step back and look at it, they only are getting it, and not really on their own. They're getting it more happenstance than anything. That he just happens to have a bad dream and starts babbling.
Right. And it doesn't take long anyway before, because now as he's talking and 12 sees he's got an opportunity here, the prisoner is making his way closer and closer anyway, so that he's able to knock the gun out. There's a brief fight in which number 12 is put down enough that the prisoner can rip off the mole and put it on his arm and learn the password, the real password. And see, this I liked, because it was like, you're going to be Gemini Man, I'll know you're the fake. You're going to be Schizoid Man, I'll know you're the real deal.
Right.
Which then leads, of course, to, again, another Rover moment, because they step outside, Rover approaches them, and the prisoner's smart enough to say Schizoid Man first, which locks him in as number 12. And no matter how much 12 actually keeps saying Schizoid Man, it doesn't matter, Rover. And it looks like you think he'd capture. We don't see the body afterwards, but we find out he's been killed by Rover.
Right. So why does Rover bother with them in this scene, but he doesn't bother with number 6 a little earlier?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm not quite clear on that. These moments where I think you just sort of go with it, you just roll with it. You just don't try to think too hard about it. But yeah, I actually wrote a note to myself at first, and then I wrote, does Rover kill him? But yes, we learned that he does indeed kill him.
Kill him, to the surprise of even number 2.
Right. So this is the point where number 2 is now on shaky ground, right? It's all blown now,
right?
And the ruse has been broken, and yeah, right. He's surprised.
But here's the thing. That then throws out your whole theory that Rover is in charge, because we've been told all along, do not damage number 6. Rover kills number 6, or who he thinks is number 6.
Right, but 2 thinks that 12 has been killed. No, pardon me. No, he thinks 6 has been killed.
He thinks 6 has been killed too, and he's furious with the whole thing.
Right, and here's where my Rover theory just goes straight down the toilet.
Right, exactly.
He says that Rover has to be deactivated.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes less of a thinking creature of some sort and more of a technological entity.
Right.
I guess, or it's a creature run by some sort of, technology, radio waves or whatever. I think it's clear at this point that no, Rovers are not running things, because they shouldn't be able to be deactivated. Yeah, but it is fascinating. It's I'm so glad to know more about the Rover situation and how this thing works. It's released, it's sent out, it has orders, it has programming, it can be deactivated. It can be wrong when it kills people. And why was it programmed to kill at that point is another question. But again, I like number 2 being surprised that quote unquote number 6 has been killed.
Yes.
Because you know what's going on in his mind at that moment? He is in deep doo-doo.
Mm-hmm.
He's done, because as soon as number 1 learns that number 6 has been killed, that ain't good.
That ain't good. But here's the thing. From this point on, there is enough in the way that our prisoner is behaving to suggest that something's wrong to number 2, and yet he constantly accepts the prisoner's brushing off of, like, because he'll he's like, well, you're in trouble. Well, we're both in trouble. This whole thing is bad, and it's like, we're and he keeps trying to deflect it, like you're the one who's in trouble, and it's like, you don't really understand the power structure the way it goes here. You're just in as much deep doo-doo number 12, who's really number 6, who's really our prisoner. You're really, and he doesn't get it. And there's other little things throughout. And then there's that whole weird thing of go talk to 24 one more time. Why?
Yeah. I'm not happy with the character of number 6 during all of this, because he's bumbling to me like an amateur.
Yes.
He is just bumbling. And I guess the only way that I can justify it is that he sees his escape. He sees a way out. He's very close. And he gets reckless. Because he should have enough experience at this point to play the game and give number 2 good enough answers to bluff his way onto that helicopter and out of there. And he doesn't, though.
No.
You know what? And I can almost not feel sympathy for him, because he kind of brings it on himself. You got cocky, dude, and you paid for it. To see number 24 again is just to bring her back in. I think it's nice because she gets to express that she's embarrassed and she's, she has regrets about her part in the whole thing.
She doesn't get to do that as much until the helicopter scene.
Well, okay, yeah.
I'm talking about when he goes to her place, because 2 wants him. Yeah. He's like, maybe you can understand what happened. You can find out what happened and why this happened, because she's got a connection with 6, and it's like, he's dead. I mean, like, what more can you? It was the Rover that killed him. Find out what's wrong with the Rover. But there is a telling line. She does say, because he's still playing up 12 and he's being snide with her and all this stuff, and he goes, well, you had a connection with him, and she goes, it was in spurts. The rapport was in spurts. It didn't always, and that also could explain why she failed with him in number 2's place.
Wait,
maybe it wasn't an act.
Does he say that to her at that moment to give her the clue her in that he's 6?
Maybe.
It's like her tipping him off with the photo.
Right.
And if he's saying, well, you had the connection, and, he knows he's being listened to and watched and all of that, but maybe it's a way to say, I'm number 6 and I'm not dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Maybe. But other than that, I really didn't see much. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it was nice seeing her again.
Well,
although we will stay. And as I said, the next morning, the helicopter's there waiting, and she's standing there. And that's where we get that final, I regret my part in all this thing.
Yeah, right. And then the thing comes up about Susan.
Well, the thing comes up about Susan, but not before that. He says, number 2 says, security precaution. And I thought, this is it. There's going to be a final password, something. He's going, oh no, security precaution, put on the blindfold. So he puts on the blindfold. The helicopter goes off. And I'm thinking, all right, at some point he's going to rip off the blindfold so you can see where he is. He's going to attack the pilot, and he's going to take control of the helicopter and fly away. Okay, because he doesn't know yet about everything that could be remotely controlled.
Couple things before I forget. We didn't mention the general.
Oh, and the reference to the general, yes.
Yeah,
which
is
again,
cool because
the very next
episode is, right, the very next episode is called The General.
Yes.
So, I don't know where 2's testing begins. You can see him starting to get an idea that things are not right.
Right.
But I don't know where he really gets to the point where he has to test number 2. So we don't know if he's making this thing up about the general at all. Maybe not. Maybe this is where he really then starts to question the whole thing. My guess is that there is no security precaution like that. but it might also be, I'm going to let him go up. He's pretty sure that that's not number 12 and that it's number 6.
Right.
He's going to, even if he fails that next question, he's going to let him go up. And then they're going to bring him back down. But they're going to go up enough that he's still going to get a really good look around. And I have a feeling that whole thing with the blindfold is not really a security precaution. It's number 2's precaution at that moment. Because if this is number 6, I don't want him getting a good lock on the coast or whatever, whatever he might see. And and then the big thing about Susan. There's really no way out of... I know what I said about 6 and that he's kind of bumbling through it, which he was. But I guess there's really no way out of that question.
No, that one you couldn't blame him.
Yeah. And it's clever. It's a perfect question on number 2's part. It's a very good one. And it's so weird. This episode, it's number 6 on shaky ground for most of it. Then he gains the upper hand again. Mm-hmm. And then he loses it again.
Yep.
It's very interesting because, in a way, the village wins at the end. They lose. I guess both sides both lose and win.
Right.
Which really makes it interesting.
Well, they lose because of the loss of number 12.
Right. But they don't lose the prisoner, which they almost did, right? Mm-hmm. And they gave him another little punch to the gut, another let you go up in a helicopter and bring you right back down moment.
Exactly. Yep.
Hey, we love doing that to you, buddy. Let's keep doing that. It's fun. And you know what it is? It's to me, it's almost a way for number 2 to get a little satisfaction out of this big disaster.
Big disaster and loss of a friend.
Yeah,
we're assuming that whole thing was real. Everything he was talking about, Flapjack Charlie and everything like that, was the real number 12.
I would assume so too, and that he knows him well enough to say you're not really acting like yourself, and we all change and all of that, and he's disappointed or whatever, but again, number 2 says to himself, I'm going to get a tiny little bit of satisfaction out of this by knocking this guy. This guy thinks he's won completely, and I'm going to knock him back down again. I've lost, but he's not. He's going to have, he's going to have his spirit crushed again because he's going to get really close, but we're not going to let him go. Right. And, with that kind of smug, Susan died a year ago.
Yeah.
And the cell door slammed shut again. Bum, bum, bum. I'll say it again. What a good episode.
No, very good.
We've been very lucky. Everything has been so good to this point.
Yep. Everything. I mean, it's funny. I would actually say Chimes of Big Ben, though, as much as a lot of people say fan favorite, is weaker than some of the other ones we've done. It's weaker than this one. I think this one works a lot better than Chimes. And Chimes of Big Ben is a great gut punch at the end. It's even a better gut punch than this one. But
yeah, and I think that's why, remember what I said, one of the greatest endings of any, episode of a television show. But maybe that's what Chimes of Big Ben is it's mostly just a great super ending, and the rest of it's good, but maybe is not as good as the ending.
Right.
I think it's held up because of the ending and also because of Leo McGoohan.
Yes.
Is so good,
yeah.
and that Leo McGoohan comes back, so I think that's why its legend has grown. But A, B, and C so good, this one so good.
Yep.
And consistently overall, Free for all. I mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I love Free for All.
Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, I think McGoohan is just fantastic in this. The overall impression that he gives of a man who is just questioning everything and all the little ticks. You got to watch his hands throughout this thing.
Yes.
He puts his hands behind his back. He turns his back to the camera and walks away, but his hand is shaking. He has tremors. The whole thing, we know that number 6 is not faking any of that up until the point that he gives himself the shock therapy.
Yeah.
That he's really knocked for a loop.
By the way, since we're talking about the conditioning and stuff there, I want to take a moment to quote one of the notes, the observations from the official Prisoner Companion, the only guide to the most original and innovative TV series of all time. This episode is an attack on the science of behavioralism, which is especially interesting considering the popularity of B.F. Skinner's writings during the late 1960s when this series was produced. In many ways, the entire Prisoners series can be seen as a revolt against the conclusions of behavioralism, especially those outlined in such popular literature as Walden 2. While both Skinner and McGoohan would agree that freedom is a myth, they would disagree violently about the society's right to influence or control its members for the common good. Skinner's high-principled hero in Walden 2, T.E. Fraser, lectures that we not only can control human behavior, we must. McGoohan's hero, number 6, would answer, the trouble with science is that it can be perverted.
Right. That's a little on the deep side, but I do understand, what the point of that is, and obviously we're to the point where I don't believe that shock therapy is used anywhere in the first world.
Not in the first world. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
There are occasionally calls, though, for it to make a return here from certain corners of our society.
Well,
Yeah,
in the fiction of this show, it makes for some good moments, of drama and everything. I personally will edit that into my overall picture of this man, number 6, that he will go to the lengths of shocking himself to regain his mind and his individualism.
but this is a man who's willing to go to any extremes to see something through. We saw that with A, B, and C, where he allowed himself to be drugged, albeit a polluted drug, a watered down version of it, but he let the experiment continue on him.
Yeah. To me, the real extreme would be just like an animal is caught and will gnaw off its own foot or hand to escape a trap.
Mm-hmm.
Would the prisoner go so far as to cut off a limb to escape? Or either figuratively or literally, I don't know. I mean, that was pretty extreme because he literally could have killed himself at that point.
True. Well, that would be an interesting, like, if you ever had that prisoner anthology, maybe he's put under, and you'd see like maybe number 2 is like, what lengths would he go to in scenarios? Not forget about finding the information. Let's just find the measure of the man.
That's how I would, that's how I would do
there's
the
my
anthology.
pitch, Jim. That's my story.
All right, I appreciate it. I would literally, that's what I would do. I would make an anthology where all the stories are more or less sequels to episodes, that they follow up on some point that was made or a character that was introduced. Because we've been saying this all along, I know I did it through Batman and everything else. Like, boy, I'd like to see more of that, this guy, or, I'd like to see more of that cafe or the speakeasy, the secret speakeasy. I'd like to see more of the controller from this episode. What happened to Allison? Over and over and over again. So if anybody out there has the license to the prisoner, and I have a little publishing firm, a house that I do, if you want to give me that license, and I will produce a very cool anthology for you.
Or that, what was her name, number 38, who had the mural made?
Yeah.
Who got the 2,000 work units?
Yes.
What did she do with her work unit?
That's. Shh, be quiet. That's my idea.
Oh, there you go.
That's my personal story for that. I told you how bad I felt for that woman.
I know.
All that work she put into it and uses it as a sail.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh my God, that must have been some light material, though. Anyway,
there's a whole episode that we've never seen where she gets some kind of revenge on number 6. For that. Yeah.
She becomes number 2.
Like bakes him brownies but puts dirt in them or something. I don't know.
Oh, by the way, have you thought any more about that proposition I put to you when you arrived?
Sorry, I've had no time.
You must have some views.
I'm afraid not.
Look, old chap, we've been through many scrapes before, but we've never fallen out over them. The General's not going to behead you.
We won't know until I've reported to the General, will we?
Report to the General? That's a new one.
Well, I don't mean report to him personally. For Pete's sake, you know what I mean.
You are edgy. Never known you quite so strung up.
You mean I'm not as I was?
Yeah. I remember Susan saying only a month ago that you're generally quite unflappable. Yeah? You have changed.
We all change. The job changes us.
Yeah. Just a quick flip in the helicopter to the landing space. You pick up the jet from there. Oh, excuse me.
I'm ashamed of what I did to number 6 yesterday.
Why are you telling me?
Everyone has to tell someone.
It was your job.
It was a betrayal.
Isn't everything we do here a betrayal?
It's not often one gets a second chance.
There are no second chances.
There are sometimes for the lucky ones. If I had a second chance, I want you to know that I wouldn't do it again.
Well, bon voyage. Thank you. Oh, one last thing. You forgot security regulations. Must be obeyed. The blindfold and check.
Oh, yes, of course.
You won't forget to give Susan my regards, will you?
I won't. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Susan died a year ago, number 6.
Anyway,
well, this was, I mean, we're doing really well, and I'm hoping, considering especially also it's the return of number 2, our next episode, The General, will prove just as strong. I know it has something to do with an education machine, so that already piques my interest. So we'll see where this goes, and we'll see if maybe we can find the clues there.
Yeah. Oh, you educators.
Yes. But we'll see also if we can find the clues here that may suggest that what number 2 in this episode was referring to was the same general.
Right.
I really want to see if that ties in any way.
Me too.
Yeah. So that's going to do it then for this episode of Once Upon a Village, a Prisoner podcast. Tune in. Like I said, next time we'll be talking The General. Until then, folks, remember, we're still looking for those comments, those questions, those fill in the gaps. Talk with us. Let us know what's going on over on the Facebook page, over on Twitter, at chronic_rift, or write us at chronicrift@gmail.com, or head on over to chronicrift.com and comment right there where the episodes are all listed. We'd love to hear from you. So until next time, be seeing you.
Be seeing you.
What do you want? Information. What do you want? Information.
The French poet and filmmaker Jean Cocteau once said, "Mirrors would do well to reflect a little more before sending back images." This is certainly the case in The Schizoid Man. The village's reflection, as usual, was somewhat warped. This episode leads us to ask a very important question. Just what is identity? Being of two minds about the subject, I've invited an expert in village psychology here to debate this question. Welcome, please, number 108. 108, thank you for coming. My pleasure, 54. 108, I'm sure our viewers would like to know how you define identity. Identity is appearance. Plastic surgery can alter appearance without changing the individual. If appearance is identity, you wouldn't catch me dead in this outfit. Identity is the social roles we play, but social roles are merely name tags to show what function we're fulfilling at a given moment. Top psychologists agree that identity is nothing more than behavior, and Pavlov and Skinner have proven that behavior can be altered through conditioning. Well, in lower animals, perhaps, but not if the subject is aware of what's happening. The trouble with science is it can be perverted. Well then, Mr. B.S. in psychology, what is identity? I can't give you a definitive answer, but this episode gave us a good clue when the Haitian controller said to number 2, in Haiti we'd say he's stolen his soul. The soul? Metaphysical hogwash. Show me a soul. Well, I'll do better than that. I'll show you where you'd be without one. Be seeing you. I'm melting! Melting! Well, at least that debate wasn't a split decision. But now, on to some matters of singular importance. We've been mentioning quite often the fact that we've reordered the 17 episodes of The Prisoner in the hopes that the development of the themes would become clearer. And over the past few weeks, I've attempted to explain why we've placed a particular episode in a new position. But with the airing of Schizoid Man, we can now talk about the reordering in a somewhat larger sense. In our new arrangement, the series takes on the appearance of a 3-act play. The first 6 episodes comprised Act 1 of this play. For the most part, Act 1 concerned the efforts of the village to disorient the prisoner, balanced by his constant efforts to escape. With Schizoid Man, however, we move into Act 2, which encompasses the middle 6 episodes. And what are the characteristics of Act 2? 3 things, we believe. The first is a subtle transition on the part of the prisoner. He has finally, after repeated attempts, discovered just how difficult escape from the village really is. In future episodes, we'll see his escape attempts dwindle as he is drawn more and more into the society of the village and its affairs. But all is not lost, nor has he given up hope. The second theme of Act 2 is made clear in Schizoid Man. The prisoner wins. Here he scores his very first victory over the disorienting forces of the village. His defeats are pretty much behind him now as he begins to catch on to the rules of life in the village and pits his wits against those rules and the rulers. But his victories are, at best, Pyrrhic victories, costly and hard won. These central 6 episodes comprise a sort of cat-and-mouse game in which each side scores some points, but neither side emerges as a clear victor. The third hallmark of Act 2 is the village's reaction to these little victories on the part of the prisoner. In many of the previous shows, the various number 2s claim that they don't want the prisoner broken, they want him won over. However, their early efforts to disorient him have all basically failed. They've succeeded in demoralizing him, but not in reprogramming him. And with the prisoner's increasing mastery of the rules of the game, comes his captor's escalation of that game. Both sides are more resolute than ever now. The prisoner is determined to preserve his individuality and his mind, and the village rulers are willing to risk affecting his mind in order to transform him into one of their own. Schizoid Man is a very fitting opening scene for Act 2, as it concerns an attempt to undermine the prisoner's very strong sense of identity, and shows that the village is willing to risk physically tampering with our hero to ensnare his mind. In the course of the next 5 episodes, we'll see various number 2s use a multitude of drugs and electronic devices to shake our hero's most valuable asset, his knowledge of who he is. And one last thing. We've received a number of letters from viewers voicing their opinions about The Prisoner. And if you have some insights you'd like to share, write me in care of The Prisoner, KTEH TV, Channel 54, 100 Skyport Drive, San Jose, California, 95115. Next week, we'll get a crash course in education as the prisoner meets the mysterious general and attempts to prove that knowledge is not necessarily wisdom. Until then, I'm Scott Appel, number 54.